Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Watch, and in this video we'll be doing a direct head-to-head comparison between the Apple iPhone 6 Plus and the Oppo R5. Now, I already did a comparison of the iPhone 6 versus the Oppo just a couple of days ago, and if you haven't seen that video, definitely check it out. But I found out that the size is more relevant to the 6 Plus, and since I have the 6 Plus, might as well do a comparison. So if you're interested in that, let's get right into this. Now, currently, right now, the Oppo R5 is the thinnest smartphone in the world. That is until something thinner comes out. And in terms of actual dimensions itself, side by side with the iPhone 6 Plus, it measures only about 4.85 millimeters versus about 7.1 millimeters on the iPhone 6 Plus, which is definitely pretty thin considering its overall size of being a phablet device. Now, from a footprint standpoint, you can notice that the 6 Plus is certainly taller and wider than the Oppo, and in terms of weight itself, we are looking at a little bit of a weight difference, about 172 grams versus about 155 grams on the Oppo. Now, moving forward, I'm really impressed with the overall build quality between these two smartphones. Specifically, the Oppo is very nicely made out of high-quality parts such as metal around the whole phone, and you also have a metal back around it, which definitely gives it a premium feel. Now, even though the iPhone 6 Plus isn't the perfect design for a smartphone, because it's so thin and it's so large, it is a little bit susceptible to some bending issues, especially if you give it some extreme force. But overall, day-to-day use, it's a very well-made phone that I have no issues with. Now, the real crazy thing is, if you don't know already, the Oppo R5 is so thin that you can't even fit a regular size headphone jack, so you have to use the micro USB adapter that comes with the phone and plug in your headphones via that connection. Now, when we're taking a look at the screens themselves, you'll notice that we do have the larger display on the iPhone 6 Plus, measuring about 5.5 inches, but the Oppo is not too far behind at 5.2 inches. In terms of resolution, we have the exact same resolution of 1920 by 1080, and in terms of PPI count, we have about 401 PPI on the iPhone 6 Plus, and the Oppo is around 423 PPI. Additionally, in terms of screen technology, we have an LCD LED backlit IPS display on the iPhone, and we have a organic LED display on the Oppo, similar technology that you see on some of the Samsung phones, and it gives you really great black levels, pretty much pitch black levels, infinite contrast ratio, and great whites, and the vibrancy is definitely better on the Oppo. In terms of color accuracy, I would kind of give it to the iPhone. It has a more balanced display. The colors are not exaggerated as what we find on the R5, but generally speaking, if I had to pick a winner out of this, I think the Oppo has the better display out of the iPhone, and I'm a real sucker for that black level that organic LED can deliver. And plus, it has a little bit of a sharper overall PPI count, so it's definitely going to give you a tiny bit of a more edge when looking at photos and movies and stuff like that at 1080p. Now, moving on, in terms of the internal specifications, we find a dual-core Apple A8 processor on the iPhone, and we have an octa-core Snapdragon chip on the R5, which is comprised of two quad-core CPUs, one clocked at about 1 gigahertz, the other one clocked at about 1.5 gigahertz, and we have 2 gigs of RAM versus 1 gigabyte of RAM on the iPhone 6 Plus. And when we take a look at the Geekbench scores, you can definitely notice that we are pretty much almost double the performance, even though we have a lot more threads and a lot more cores on the Oppo R5. But really, you can see how well the A8 is designed on the iPhone 6 Plus, getting a really incredible single core and a multi-core score. And the same result is kind of followed up by our Antutu benchmark, which measures a whole bunch of different tasks such as multitasking, graphical performance, CPU testing, and definitely a faster overall score on the iPhone compared to the Oppo. Now, one thing we have to consider is that the operating system on the Oppo has a lot of different conveniences, has a lot of different customization options. It is running Android 4.4, but we have the Color OS skin, which is Oppo's own skin. That is definitely a nice, tasteful representation of Android, and there's a lot of customization options where you can pretty much change the look of it. You can even make it look more of a stock Android look, which is a big plus for me. And the iPhone is definitely running a great OS, which is iOS 8. There's a whole bunch of different features, and people are going to have their preferences, whether they like Android or iOS. But generally speaking, there's a couple of different features that the 6 Plus has that makes it a little bit more easier to use with one hand. It has one-hand operation mode. If you double tap on the home button, it drops down at the top menu, so it's a little bit more easier to use with one thumb. You also have landscape capabilities. We have dual planes and different applications, which is definitely nice to see. We also do have one-hand operation mode on the Oppo R5. You can easily execute it because it has lots of different gesture controls. And additionally, one of the cool things about the Oppo is the fact that you can actually add your own gesture controls. So you can basically, when the screen is off, you can draw a circle that'll open up your camera application. You can draw a little V when the screen is off, and it'll open up your flashlight, and it goes way beyond all those features. Furthermore, in terms of cameras, looking at the rear-facing camera specifically, we are going to notice that we have 8 megapixel stills capabilities on the 6 Plus with optical stabilization. This is the only iPhone that has that right now. And we have 13 megapixel stills capabilities on the R5 with 1080p at 60 frames per second, just like what we find on the 6 Plus. But we do have better slow motion capabilities on the 6 Plus at 240 frames per second versus about 120 frames per second on the Oppo. So what we're going to do is you guys can take a look at my photo and video footage that came out of these two phones and determine what looks best to you. Now, the last thing that we're going to talk about is an area which the Oppo doesn't really perform that well, and that's battery life. Because it's so thin, we can only fit a certain size of battery, which is a 200 milliamp hour battery, which is a lot smaller than the 2915 milliamp hour battery that we see in the 6 Plus. And even though 6 Plus is pretty thin, we do have a larger overall footprint, so it can house a much larger battery than what we find on the Oppo. And generally speaking, you get about a day of battery life on the Oppo based on my testing, and about a day and a half to 2 days on the iPhone 6 Plus. It's a really great phone in terms of battery life when you're taking a look at the iPhone 6 Plus. And if you're a really heavy-duty user, I would generally recommend that you take a look at another phone, especially if you don't need a phone to be about 4.85 millimeters thick. And generally speaking, there's a lot of different aspects of the Oppo that I really like, but I would love to hear your thoughts on this whole comparison. What do you guys think of the Oppo generally? And if you haven't checked out already, I've actually compared the Oppo to a whole bunch of different devices we have in the MW studio, so definitely check out the channel for all those comparisons. Thanks so much for your support, and we'll see you later. Take care.